I am Richland 2 Superintendent, Dr. Kim Moore. Welcome to this episode of the More You Know podcast. Now, I want to share some very important information with you today. According to the CDC data, nearly 3 in 5 U.S. teen girls felt persistently sad or hopeless in 2021. Double that of boys, representing a nearly 60% increase and the highest level reported over the past decade. Because those statistics are so alarming, I felt it was very important that we bring in the experts and engage in a conversation today around mental health. Let me share some additional information with you. In a survey conducted in 2022 by the Institute of Education Sciences, leaders from more than 2/3 of public schools reported an increase in the number of students seeking mental health services since the pandemic. And nearly half of them said they could not effectively provide mental health services to all students in need. So between social media, the lingering results of the pandemic, and continuing news coverage of school violence across the nation, many of our kids are struggling with mental health issues. And parents, that means when your children are struggling, we know you are also struggling. So joining me today to talk about this area are two of my favorite people that I get to partner in this work of supporting our students. That is the amazing Abby Cobb, Richland 2's lead social worker. Welcome, Abby.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moore.
And Otasha Morgan. You talk about a gem in the work that she does because she's Richland 2 lead district counselor. So ladies, thank you for being here with us today.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
We really appreciate you. Those statistics that I shared are startling, and they're heartbreaking, not just for our children, our students, but for our families, for our community, and for us as educators. So I have a couple of questions I want to ask you today, and I really do want parents to have information so they can better meet the needs of their students, because students can't learn when they're stressed out or when they're having emotional challenges. And our goal is to ensure that every one of our students is future ready, which means we have to be purpose driven. So here's my first question. What are some warning signs that adults should be looking for? What about a teen perspective? And how do they know if they need help?
Warning signs are not going to be clear-cut. I think the key word in any indicator is change. Parents, adults need to look for changes in a child or a colleague's normal functioning. Changes like hygiene. A person who normally is very polished and stylish, maybe now they're a little unkempt and not really taking care of hygiene needs. A person who normally may be pretty steady and even keeled, now having lots of emotional outbursts. So I think changes in, we can go through a list of 100 different behaviors, but when someone has shifted, and I'm not talking about a daily, like a one day, I've just had an off day, but you're starting to see a pattern that this person is behaving or acting in ways that are normally out of character for them. Those are, the things, and I try to remind teens to remember that word. If you don't remember anything, remember change. When you see your friend who's always maybe been active on certain social media, they've been active a certain way on social media, and now you notice they're very dark. Or you see that they're very isolated. You used to be able to hang out and do things together, and now they kind of tend to, stay to themselves. I think our society, we've sort of been ingrained to mind our own business. And we're at a place now where we have to get comfortable being nosy. And I think that is uncomfortable for a lot of people. We see shifts in people's behavior, and we don't want to get involved. We don't want to pry, but that may save someone's life ultimately.
You raise multiple points there that are just so important. And it made me think about social media and parents monitoring their students' activity on social media, because a lot of times young people will put things on social media that they're not comfortable saying,
Absolutely.
especially to the adults in their life. And so having friends that you know your children's friends, and they will talk to you about, I've noticed a change, and then you knowing as a parent what kind of questions to ask.
Yeah.
So important. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We really appreciate that information. Abby, I'm going to ask you this next question, because you do a phenomenal job of lining up the proper supports for our families and our students. So what supports are available in schools to help my child? You know, I'm the very proud mother of 5 children.
Wow.
They're all grown and out of my
That's
house,
amazing.
so I consider myself a successful parent because
There you go.
none of them live with me.
Yes.
But I'm blessed to have 7 grandchildren who are in those teenage and young ages. And so, you know, if students are having a hard time, who should they talk to at school?
First, I think it's really important to address the willingness to come to the school and talk with us about what's happening in a child's life, in a student's life, in a family's life. I think many times it's not a natural go-to to share with schools, whether that's teachers or counselors or social workers or administrators. There's more of a tendency to, at times, not necessarily think to go there. And so I would first like to encourage all of our community, our parents and our students and our community partners, if we know that there's something going on within a family, there's some struggles happening, some stressful events, it's really helpful for us to know. It's helpful for the teacher to have, they don't have to know the ins and outs, but it's
No.
helpful to know that something's going on at home that's really difficult. And just being mindful of that as you interact with the student or the ways that you respond to them. So I would encourage that first. But in Richland School District 2, we are very proud. Tasha and I work so closely together, but we are so proud of our staff who we know change lives every day. And in Richland School District 2, we've worked very hard to really collaborate and create what we call our Learning Support Services staff, LSS. And they are your traditional helping professionals. So every school has a team of LSS staff that consist of our school counselors, our social workers, our school psychologists, our school nurses. We have to make sure our nurses are always there.
Yes.
They are typically one of the ones who see kids the most, and many times are frequently flyers. Our kids who are struggling, it will come out in headaches, it will come out in stomach aches, and they'll end up in the nurse's office. And so our nurses, and then we also have our wonderful program called Family Intervention Services. So every school has this team. It looks a little bit different, varying on the levels and, elementary, middle, and high school, but we all have them. And so we can provide on-site support for our students. Now, let me be clear that this is not like therapy.
Right.
That is services that would need to be, sought out within the community. But we have the ability to do check-ins. We have the ability, when you're having a tough day, come talk to us. We have the ability to do small groups. We need to work on our social skills. Okay, let's get a group together and let's focus on that. We have struggles with how we view ourselves. A lot of our LSS teams in the schools are providing those small groups, doing one-on-ones with students, doing check-ins.
Classroom lessons?
Yeah, classroom lessons. So we have supports in our schools. And again, when we know that supports are needed, then we can do that for our students. And it needs to be many times it needs to be in collaboration with outside services. It's not just the schools that can provide these services. But our LSS staff are here to do what we can to support our students while they're at school to help them be successful.
Wow, that's a lot. what you just shared. And thinking about that statistic around girls, the importance of image and helping our young ladies form the right image of themselves at that early stage when they're learning and defining who they are
Right.
is critical to addressing that high percentage of our young ladies struggling with their mental health. You said something really important at the beginning of your answer around families being welcomed in our schools and coming to us to let us know what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, I was raised in a time where there was the expression of, we don't air our dirty laundry in public,
Absolutely.
right? What happens in this house stays in this house. Well, that's not helpful to our students. And as a school district, we're not interested in knowing people's personal
Right.
business. What we're interested in is helping their students be successful and helping that family get the resources and support that they need to be successful, for their children to be successful.
Absolutely.
And so I would encourage all of our families out there, if you are having struggles, please let us know. I can guarantee that our LLS teams take confidentiality very seriously.
Absolutely.
They're not there to share all of your personal information with anyone that is not appropriate for it to be shared with. So
Right.
they will be there to support you and to help your children. So that is just so important. So here's our next question. That is, what are the things that we can do at home to help to support our children's mental health?
Modeling is really important.
Explain.
How we as the adults express ourselves when we're angry, when we disagree, when we are upset about something, kids are learning from that every moment. Well, I don't know about you, but there have been times my kids have called me out as they were
Absolutely.
younger,
Mine have too.
but mommy, and I have to check myself and realize, no, I did not respond appropriately. You're absolutely right. I tell you to do this, and I did not do that. So modeling really, and we see it all the time. If parents have poor coping strategies, a lot of times we see that demonstrated in the classroom with our kids. Also, letting them know that they are loved and supported. Kids speak a unique language that parents don't always understand. And it's not always about what we're giving them. It really is a lot about quality time and how we're engaging our kids. We can give them the world, but if we're not giving them quality time, we're not teaching them skills, and we're not really showing them the love that they will always crave and always miss. Positive feedback and encouragement. That means you have to be invested in what your kids are interested in, and being able to give them constructive and positive feedback and just encouraging them to, work harder, try harder, and that they're doing a great job and that they are enough, as they are. Those types of things are very important. I also think we forget, I like the phrase joyful movement. Anytime we can engage our bodies, because those are things that are good for all of our mental wellness. Going on a walk with your child. If you're walking the dog, go on a walk with your dog with your child. Or being invested in, if they're involved in sports activities. I'm not saying jump out on the football field, but being an active participant and observer in them actually getting that exercise and just a different way of expressing and a different outlet for communicating, and making emotional conversations normal.
So important.
It really is, and like you said, I come from an era too where, you don't talk about your family business and you don't show emotions. But if we don't get to see our kids show emotion, then we don't know what they're missing. We don't know what they need. So that's so important. But it really does go back to modeling.
Go ahead, Abby.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, particularly in adolescence, emotions can be big. They can be very big and they can be broad, and 1 minute it's one thing and 1 minute it's another thing. And so I think many times we want to come in and we want to fix that emotion. And I think it's so important for our children to understand it's okay that you're angry, it's okay that you're sad or scared or frustrated or whatever that emotion is that they're experiencing. And we're going to get through this together and not just go automatically into fix. And just, children need to be heard. They need to be able to express what it is that they're feeling. And I think that's such an important component where I am a fixer. And I am a mother of several children as well. Our youngest is 19, and I like to fix a lot. And
So do
he
I.
gives me lots of opportunities
So do I.
to
Oh, I
try
do
to
too.
fix.
I've had that too. Yes.
So I really can connect with parents where we want to go in and we want to make it better for them. And so those big
It's hard.
emotions, I think letting them have those big emotions, and as they figure out how to have those big emotions and it not be destructive, those are such important parts of their growing and how to handle those responses.
And being open to professional help. When you, as a parent, feel like you are out of your capacity, you've maxed out what you can do, seeking professional help, and there is nothing wrong with that. And that is something that still has to be normalized in our society.
And we're going to talk about that in my next question, but I want to unpack some of the points that we just talked about, because modeling, you're absolutely right, is so important. Our children look to us. Our students look to us as teachers, as counselors, as social workers. They look to us to help them understand and to process whatever it is that they're dealing with, because they don't have the skills to do that. And so when we talk about giving them space for those emotions, I remember when my children were in middle school, from 1 minute to the next minute. And that's why I always say when I go out to visit schools, there's a special place in heaven for kindergarten teachers, and in particular, middle school teachers,
Yes.
but 7th grade middle school teachers, because that's the year that they seem to
It's tough.
experience so much change in that transition from being an elementary student
Yep.
in 6th grade still to really entering into young adulthood. And it can be challenging. So if parents don't have those skills or know how to handle and have those appropriate conversations, would that be a place also for them to come to with the LLS to get some strategies around, I'm not going to fix this, I'm going to listen,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about why do you feel that way, what you could do different, or some other ways to address that.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important to normalize parenting is hard.
It is.
It's
I
really
made so many
hard,
mistakes.
and-
It's the hardest job you'll ever love.
Again, Tasha and I have worked together for years, and my colleagues here at work and my close families have helped me parent and have helped me get through those moments. And so first, I think normalizing how much parenting is hard, and it's okay that we don't have all the answers. It's okay that we might need to seek out some support. And so absolutely, coming forward, I think it would be a breath of fresh air, to hear from a parent, like, can you give me some strategies? Can you give me some resources? By all means, let us know. And again, if there's additional things that are needed beyond that, we'll be happy to connect our families with
Yeah.
those resources and that information.
Because I think the point you shared just about quality time is something we're missing
Yeah.
in today's society.
We're so busy.
And while the pandemic brought out, it was not a great experience for many, many, many of us, there were some positive things that came out of that. I noticed people in my neighborhood were out walking, exercising, kids were riding their bikes. There was more family activity and
Absolutely.
time. And quality time for our children is so important. I know they love to game. My grandchildren love to game, to play the video games. But I like to tell them, grandmother is not a gamer. So grandmother's going to read a book with you, or we're going to take a walk, or we're going to just have conversation. Because it's about quality time. That's where memories are made, and that's where learning takes place.
Absolutely.
Those social skills you talked about, we model those as parents. But if parents need help, I know that we just recently partnered with Care Solace. So how does that help, this partnership with Care Solace? How does this help address the mental health needs of our students? And how do we use Care Solace? And can parents contact them directly?
Absolutely. We are so excited. Our Learning Support Services leadership team, we're just so thankful that we have this opportunity to share with our community. And so Care Solace is a mental health coordination service. They're not providing direct mental health services to our students and our families. But one of the things that we hear from our community when they come to us and say, we think we need some more help or we'd like to seek out some services, and we share with them, okay, well, here's some ways to look that up. Often we hear they can't find a place that has an opening, or it takes months to access those services. Also, just the emotional capacity to call your insurance company up, figure out who's in network, who will accept my insurance, and calling, and you leave a message, and then they call you back. Just the amount of time that it can take to find a provider, secure, are they the right fit for me? And so Care Solace does that for our families.
Awesome.
Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing, because you're right. Emotionally, I'm already
Right.
anxious and possibly even drained from dealing with trying to support my child, because
Right.
I'm worried about what's happening with my child. And on top of that, I'm having to go through all of this process.
Yes.
I don't have the bandwidth to do that.
right.
It's very daunting.
It-
It can be very daunting.
it is.
I love the language they use, warm handoff. And that is what we're doing, is
Oh,
we're
a
making a
warm
warm handoff from
handoff.
us to Care Solace, and they are going to sort of shepherd our families through that pipeline. So it's not so daunting.
Go ahead, Abby.
So families can do it two ways. They can reach out to one of our wonderful LSS staff or administrators, school staff members, and we can do that warm handoff on their behalf. We'll gather, it's very minimal information. I've done a warm handoff myself for a staff member here in the district already. And we just gather just a little bit of information. We submit that referral. That individual got a text message within 5 minutes that said, when when would you like to talk? Here's some times. And so literally the same day, they were already in communication of what was their family seeking, what kind of information they felt was necessary to share. And so you have the ability to reach out to the school staff, or there is the website. You link it, you get to it from the Richland 2 website. It is available 24/7. You can go on that website and you can self-refer, and you can fill out that information. And you can also do a search to see which providers are in our area. So there's actually 3 ways: contacting the school, going to the website yourself and referring, or going to the website and searching for providers.
I love the warm handoff, because the benefit of that also allows us then to come back and follow up with that person.
Yeah.
How did everything go? How is it working out? Because we do want to be there to support our families and support our students. And you said staff. So this is open to our staff members also, as well as our families.
Absolutely.
Awesome, because we know our staff are people.
Life happens
and
to everyone.
we struggle just like everybody
Yes.
else.
It's so important. Life happens to our staff.
Our
just like
staff
it
are
does
people,
everybody
and we
else.
have families, we have children. I'm the very proud mother of a blended family. And so that comes with unique challenges also. And so the fact that we have a place and support, not just for our students and their families, and some of our students are family
Right,
members of
right.
our staff, that's critical.
Yes.
That's critical.
I think
Thank
it's
you.
so important, if the adults aren't okay, our children are not going to be okay. And I think, as Tasha was talking about the warm handoff, so many times that happens in a conversation with a parent or caregiver with school staff because they're talking about concerns and, you know, sometimes you're not sure, do I need outside help? Do I need to, you know, seek somebody else who can help me? And a lot of those conversations are occurring within the schools. And so we're so thankful to have this opportunity to do a warm handoff where we can really increase accessibility. It's the same providers that are already out in our community, so it's not changing that, but it's changing access and the ability to, again, have that coordination service and increase the access. I keep saying that, but the amount of people who can have that and who can, you know, somebody can help them figure out which is the right fit. It's such an important component.
Well, not just the access, but it's reducing the stress level,
Absolutely.
right? Which
Yeah.
is definitely impacting the environment of the home because everyone is under stress
Absolutely.
to address whatever the concerns and issues are. And that stress goes back to something you talked about, Tasha, which is around the modeling. So I'm going to direct this next question to you. So I'm the parent or the caregiver, because not everyone lives with a parent, but we have lots of great, wonderful caregivers, guardians, grandparents, aunts and uncles who are
Absolutely.
taking care of our children, and we appreciate that so much. How can I open a conversation with my child?
It takes practice, and I think it's important to maintain a consistent line of communication. A lot of times our kids are going to give us one-liners.
Oh, yes.
Fine.
How was your
Fine.
day today?
Fine.
Good. How are your grades? Good.
Fine.
So as parents, caregivers, we have to learn how to ask open-ended questions. So a one-shotter would not fit. I used to ask my kids when they'd get in the car after school, instead of how was your day, tell me the best thing about your day today. So they can't just say good, you know, or fine. They have to give me some details.
High lows. We used to do that as well in the car, right? The
Yes,
high lows. What was your high? What was your low?
Absolutely. Starting with relatable topics. A lot of times we want to get straight to the tough stuff. No. I had an administrator several years ago, and we were working on something, we were working on trying to change something systemically. And he said, Tasha, when you got an elephant and you got to start taking bites, you
One
don't
bite at a
always
time.
have to start at the bag.
And you eat it one bite at a time.
One bite at a time, yes. And so starting with things that are relatable, things that you easily connect on to learn how to build the communication skills. It's easy to just accept the good, the one-liners from teens, but you got to get comfortable pushing them to give you more. And then they act frustrated. Yeah. You make it consistent.
Yeah.
You make this the norm. This is how we're going to communicate and engage.
I love that. I love that strategy there that you just talked about. Two of my children went to school with me when I became an educator. And so one of the things, and parents, I will tell you this, your children do hear you when you speak, because now that they're grown, I hear them saying things that I said, and I'm like, yes, they were listening.
It worked.
It
It worked. But one of the things I would do is turn the radio off. So my son, and it was two of my sons, had my undivided attention, and I had their attention. So I would turn the radio off, and I would try to ask those open-ended questions, like you just said. Tell me something that was great today that happened, and listen to what they had to say. I'll just tell you a brief story about a conversation I had with one of my grandchildren, who was in elementary school at that time. And I asked him, I said, so tell me something that you learned today in class, when I talked to him on the phone. He said, nothing of significance, grandmother. I said, well, unpack that for me. What does that mean, you didn't learn anything of significance today in school? Because that's a problem if you didn't
Yes,
learn
all
anything
day.
of significance. And so we had about a 15-minute conversation, and I reminded him, because I tell all of my children, my grandchildren especially, they are gifted, talented, wonderful world changers. And I said, I know you are gifted and talented, and you are a world changer, but I'm confident that your teacher could teach you something. Just give her a chance. And so you made me think about that, because he had me laughing in that conversation.
Also, being patient when we're communicating with our kids, not pushing too hard, but if it's consistent, you can come back. You know, you kind of layer the conversation. Also, how do I say this? Being neutral.
Oh.
There have been many times when I'm talking with my children, because I encourage them to be expressive, and I have to like really hold myself when they give me the answer. And I have to decide, okay, am I going to react or am I going to use this as an opportunity to continue to open the line of communication? So I may come back and react another time, but in that moment, I'm really just listening.
Yeah.
And just hearing what they're saying, not judging necessarily, particularly if it might be a pretty tough topic, and then learning how to go myself and process that, process how I need to respond. My husband and I will talk a lot about, okay, what's going to be our next move, you know, so that we're not just flying off of emotion. Goes back to that modeling. We're practicing how we communicate effectively. So being patient and also learning how to be neutral, that is tough. That is easier to say.
Where were you when I
That
was
is tough.
raising my children? Come on.
See, I told you, this is why she's been right here with me.
I definitely could have used that skill set. Being a fixer, you know, I always wanted to fix. And my fixing was more of, you will do this, you need to do that. This is what you're going to do, type of thing to address those. But you're right, especially when our children get to that point where they're sharing things that may be uncomfortable for us to hear. We need to be able to model for them as they watch us as we're interacting with the other adults in our house, that it's okay to step away from a situation and give every person in that conversation time to process and to bring their emotions
Yeah.
Yes.
under control. My mother used to say to me, don't ask questions that you really don't want to know the answers to.
That is
Yeah.
And
good
so
wisdom.
I have shared that wisdom with lots of other people around. You want to know what's going on with your child, but be careful when you're asking questions that you're prepared for the answers.
Yeah.
Because how you respond will determine how your children will come to you later in
Abs-
life.
Absolutely. And your kids are constantly testing the boundaries
Yes.
to see what's safe to share with you. And it really only takes one time to mess up, and it's hard to break back through that wall with them. But you just have to be consistent. Learn how to just say, I messed up.
Yeah,
I
so
was
important.
wrong.
That is so important.
Please forgive me. And can we try this again?
I didn't handle that the right way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's perfectly okay to say that.
Yeah.
I've had to say that too. Now, we've talked a lot about younger kids. And Abby, you mentioned that you had a 19-year-old. So for our families that still have or have older
Yeah.
young adults in their house, because they could be college students, you know, they're still our children. How can we open up that dialogue with them around those touchy subjects?
Yeah.
Because they're now adults, technically, according to society, and they are still testing those boundaries.
Absolutely.
But they need us as their coaches,
Yes.
as their support system. How can we open that kind of conversation?
I was thinking as you were sharing your story earlier, again, as a parent, when I stopped taking my son, when I stopped driving him to school, what a shift that was in our relationship, because that was our time to talk, and I missed that. And so I had to create opportunities to have that conversation that we would normally have in the 20-minute drive to and from school. And as I think about adolescents, many times they want privacy. They are, in their bedrooms with their doors closed. And so a lot of times I think that we have a tendency to want to draw them out to us. And many times we might need to go to them, go to their safe space, go to them and be where they're comfortable, even if that is sitting in a dirty room with a bed that
on their
sheets haven't
bed.
been washed in a long
Abby,
time.
you're pushing me now. You're pushing me out of my comfort zone.
But I think going to them is an important component. And of course, it's not always about just making them comfortable, but there are compromises that we can make as an adult to make the setting maybe a place where they're more likely to talk. And I think, Tasha was sharing all of these wonderful tips, but also if and when you need to have the hard conversation, you've got to have the hard conversation. And I think it's really important to encourage our parents, if you are concerned about the safety of your child, are they having thoughts about wanting to harm themselves? Have they tried to harm themselves? Have they had thoughts about not wanting to be alive anymore? Those are some extreme examples, but it does happen. We know that happens. And so I think we're sometimes afraid to ask the big questions. Of course, we're afraid to get that answer, because if you say yes, then that's
Then what?
Then what do I do?
that's the worst
Yes.
of worst
What
as
do
a
I do?
parent, right? But we have to just ask those hard questions. And I think, saying things like, I'm not really sure how to ask this. I'm not sure if this is the right way, but I am scared and I love you. And are you having thoughts about harming yourself? Are you having times when you're so sad that you don't feel like you can, get involved with others? Or, relationships with each other, teen relationships can be very dramatic, right?
Yes.
And so asking the hard questions about those things. And I just want parents to know and encourage them, you do need to do it with empathy, coming with a soft voice, coming with some humility of like, I'm just not really sure how to do this. You don't have to do that, but it can be helpful. And just, you have to ask the question.
And also recognize that it's not a judgment against your parenting.
Oh,
That our
you hit
kids
my heart right there.
are
I took it
individuals,
personally. I'll just be honest. I took it
Because
personally.
they're happy does not mean that you were not a good parent. I mean, because they're not happy does not mean you were not a good parent. And I think a lot of parents get stuck there. Well, I've done this, I've provided that, you've got all of these things, your life should be great.
Yeah.
It's not about your quality as a parent. This is their personal journey, their personal struggle. And sometimes we have to remove ourselves out of that and just focus on what they need in that
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about school, and we know school doesn't go year-round, contrary to what some people would like to believe and would like to have. What do I do
Yeah.
if it's July? My children aren't in school. School is not open. How can I get support from my child?
That's why a resource like Care Solace is so important. Most of our learning support services staff are not on working contract in the summertime, and schools really are operating with a skeleton staff at that point. So Care Solace really for us kind of helps bridge that gap for us in that summertime stretch, even over holidays. It could be
Oh,
Christmas
yes.
break.
It could
where we've
be.
got an extended holiday, and parents realize they need some support. Care Solace is 24/7, 365 days of the year. So that is going to be sort of we're going to monitor that and see how that's faring. But I think that will provide services that we have not been able to provide during those times that our staff are off of contract.
I think that's so important that what you just said around their hours, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days. Because as we think about those summer months, or as you said, holidays, but it's 1 a.m.
Yes.
in the morning, and I'm seeing something in my child. Maybe they're up and about and they're anxious. How do I reach them? So Abby, you had shared where parents can find that information around, about Care Solace. Where can
Yeah.
they find it again?
So it is on our website, and I believe underneath the Parents tab on our website, it has a Care Solace tag itself. And so you can always access 24/7, 365 from the Richland 2 website. You'll be able to get to that website and make a referral or call. They have a 1-800 number that you can call 24/7 as
Okay.
well. And so that is always going to be accessible to you.
And then if that happens over a break or in the summer or in the evening, we would ask them to come and let the LLS team know so that we can also keep track and be on the lookout to how we
Yeah.
can better support the student while they're in school.
Right. I think that's really, again, another important piece. And I would say that there's not a lot of staff, and we're not equipped during the summer to provide that hands-on direct support. But if you are, up against a wall and you don't know what to do, you can reach out and we can try to see if we can do that to support. But communicating with us, particularly during summer or winter breaks when there's an extended period of time away, transitioning back is always tough. And so if there's additional things that we can be aware of to let us know and kind of that handle with care, shift in perspective in our thinking, that can be really helpful for us.
That's so true, because even as adults, it's hard for us to transition back.
It is.
We don't.
Have to start
I don't know
practicing a
about
few
you,
days early.
but I don't want to get up when the alarm goes off at 5:30
Absolutely.
in the morning.
Yep.
When I've been able to sleep till 7 or 8 for those days that I've been
Yeah.
off. So, that is just so important.
7 or 8 still feels early to me. I would go from 5 to maybe 10.
Okay, 5 to 10. All right. Well, we know our teenagers are like that too. 1
Absolutely.
o'clock is a
Absolutely.
good time for them.
Absolutely.
It's like, no, breakfast is done. We're at lunch now. But we got to get back to school. We have just barely scratched the surface. And that last point that you made, Tasha, about parents, I think we're going to have to come back and have a conversation around that for parents and for the adults. Because, like I said, I made plenty of mistakes.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why as grandparents, we're so much better. 1, 2, we can send them home. But we know
You've
so
learned.
much more. We've learned through our many mistakes.
Yes.
And so, grace. As parents, we need to extend ourselves grace,
Absolutely.
but we also need to extend our children grace, right? Because they are going through this process of learning to be the wonderful adults that we aspire for them to be.
The world changers.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I do have world changers. My grandchildren
Absolutely.
are truly talented, gifted world changers who are going to do some amazing things because they're my grandchildren and they're awesome. And I know everybody feels the same way about their
Absolutely,
children and their
yeah.
grandchildren. I always tease them and tell them, well, your parents, your children, your parents, I say to them, your parents, well, they didn't learn everything that I tried to give them, and we'll just keep that between us. But
You're going to get it all.
you get it all. Because don't tell your mother I said this, but you are gifted, and you are talented, and you are a world changer. And so one of my youngest grandchildren went and told his mother said something to him. He said, Mother, I am gifted, I'm talented, and I'm a world changer. I got it. He was in that stage
I
of,
bet he
I could do it
does.
myself.
Yes,
I could do it
yes.
myself.
Yes.
So, but anyway, we'll come back and have a conversation around parenting.
I'd love to.
So in this podcast, we've talked about some points to consider as you open the door to discussing your teen's mental health. I want to emphasize that this is so important because we want to make sure that it's safe for your child to discuss these tough issues with you. We're partners in this work, parents, caregivers, guardians, whatever role you serve in a child's life. We are partners with you. We understand that you are our children's first educator. You're the one that's going to be there in the trenches with them as they go through these challenging times. But we want to partner with you. So I hope through this process today, this wonderful podcast, that you've learned that kids often avoid talking about those touchy subjects, especially if they expect to be judged, lectured, or punished. And honestly, I am guilty of those three things: judging, lecturing, and punishing. But I've learned today that there are more effective ways to help support. And so I'm going to be a better parent and a better grandparent. So if you haven't already committed to that, I would challenge you to do that, to affirm that your teen can come and tell you anything. And it starts with listening. So resolve to listen more than you speak. Nothing will send your teen running the other way faster than failing to see and hear them fully. That 30-minute lecture you gave, they heard the first minute and the last minute. So please consider avoiding putting your teen in situations where they feel defensive.
Yeah.
Naturally, it can be challenging. We've all struggled. I think you've heard everyone today discuss, we've struggled this. So you can't be sure how they will react when you ask them about their mental health. But as Abby said, you have to ask those tough questions. So by far, factual statements are usually the best. Let me give you an example. You know, we're all educators here. Maybe not classroom teachers, but we're all educators. And so let us share just a few tips with you. So instead of saying, you've been acting really strange these past few weeks, Abby, instead I could say, I noticed you hate coming down to dinner lately, and you really don't seem hungry at other times. What's going on? And so I've given you a point of reference, and it also lets you know, I noticed your behavior.
Yeah.
And what do we hear kids say all the time? I see you. That's the new word. That's what they say. I see you. Because we all want to be seen, heard, and valued. When you ask that question, parents, accept some silence. Because your child might not know what to say at first, especially if they've been trying to hide how they are feeling or manage those things on their own. Because people having mental health struggles often feel shame and fear on top of everything else. And Tasha, you really touched on that. We have to break that code of silence and ask for help. Even as adults, we have to ask for help, because it can make things much harder for your children or for other people to open up to anyone, to include you, even the people that they trust the most. So explain that even though you're worried, you wait for them to think about what they'd like you to know. If they don't come back to you on their own, try restarting the conversation in a few days, right? This is such a sensitive topic, so realize that mental health stigma still exists today. Despite still believing that having a mental health condition means someone is broken, untrustworthy, or potentially violent, in fact, many don't seek mental health treatment because of that stigma. They're afraid of what others will think of them, of what they actually think of themselves, right?
Yeah.
So it's important that we help to alleviate that stigma, and that we can help our children, our family members, get the support that they need. So we're going to provide some additional resources that you'll be able to access. But remember, if you have any concerns, please come, reach out to us. We have great resources. As you can see today, 2 of our finest here willing to support. Our LLS teams at school are there. We have some additional outside partnerships that can get you the support and the resources that you need. We are here to help. So with that, I want to say thank you, ladies. I am just so excited to have spent this time with you today. And I look forward to our next topic
Okay.
around how do we help parents
All right.
be better
Yeah.
parents
Absolutely.
so that they're not feeling like they're not doing a great job.
Yeah.
And when we mess up, because we all mess up, how do we then recover and to continue to do the best job that we had to do? Because it is truly a privilege to be a parent and to raise the next generation of leaders. Because remember, parents in Richland too, we are purpose-driven so that our students can be future ready.